Well, hello. I'm Tom with the OutdoorCookStore.com. Listen, thanks for checking us out today, and special thanks to all of our subscribers, our YouTube subscribers, and our newsletter subscribers. Listen, we really appreciate you following us, and hope you enjoy. So, what I thought I'd do today is bake a little bread. I'm not a master baker. I've never even had a baking class. But I have a friend of mine that a while back, he's been baking bread, he's been retired baking bread for years at home, and kind of showed me the ropes. And I found that I can bake a pretty nice loaf of bread from scratch. So I thought there probably others out there would like to do the same. So here we go. I'm going to actually bake 2 loaves. One we're going to do in the oven, in a Dutch oven, in the oven, and another we're going to do a Dutch oven outside over coals. So we're going to do the same recipe for both, but 2 different ways. So anyway, here we go. The recipe calls for 6 cups of flour all told. So that's going to be 4 cups of unbleached bread flour, 1 cup of whole wheat flour, and 1 cup of all-purpose flour. And I use King Arthur flour. Seems to work great for me. We're going to do 3 teaspoons of rapid rise yeast, 3 teaspoons of salt. I use sea salt. You can use any type of salt. And then we're also going to use 2.5 cups of water. Now that makes 1 pretty good sized loaf. I'm going to divide it into 2, make 2 loaves. If you want to follow along, you might also, you might just cut all those ingredients in half and make 1 smaller loaf if you'd like. But anyway, you can decide what you want to do there. Let me get this mixed up and we'll get started and walk you through step by step. Okay, first step, I've got my flour mixed together pretty well. And I've got 2.5 cups of water. So just the flour and water, you want to mix that. I'm going to mix it with a wooden spoon and let that sit for 25 minutes, half hour. Now, you want to mix it just so all of the flour is soaked in. You don't want to use too much water. So this, if 2.5 cups is sometimes, depending, doesn't always work, and I have to add a little more. So we'll see what happens. But like I say, you just want it all to soak in the flour. You don't want it too wet. If you got it too wet, you just add a little, sprinkle in a little more whole wheat flour. That really soaks up the moisture. So if you use too much water, no big deal. Okay, you can see where it's just kind of tough to get that last bit. So I'm going to add just a touch more water. Let's see if I can't get all of that just to soak in. And there we go. Just that extra little tiny bit gets you a nice mixed together dough. Okay. Now, I'm going to let that sit for, like I said, 25 minutes to a half hour, somewhere in that range. And then I'm going to add the other ingredients, and we're going to knead it and get that part of it going. Okay, I've had my dough sitting for a half hour. That's all you need to do, just the dough. Let it sit for a half hour. Now we're going to knead it. But before we do that, we need to add our other ingredients. We're going to add our 3 teaspoons of yeast, rapid rise yeast, 3 teaspoons of salt. First, to help me along this, get my hands wet, I'm going to dump the yeast in. Get all that stuff in there. And the salt. The reason I wet my hands is this is real sticky. And it's going to get even stickier. These, by the way, are a godsend. my dough out of there. Some of my ingredients are spilled back in there. So I just dip the dough in there and get all of that yeast and all of that salt. And you just kind of work with your hands to start with. What we're gonna, this will probably take 6 to 10 minutes, anywhere in there. Okay, I got all that good stuff. And basically, right now you can see it. It's breaking fairly easy, tearing in the middle. You just want to work all of that yeast and all of that salt in there, and then we're just going to kind of work it and stretch it around our hands like it's a taffy machine. And you can see how it's breaking right now? 6 to 10 minutes from now, it will be nice and elastic. So that's what we're going for. Okay, see how this is been 6, 7 minutes. You can see how it's just rolling around, stretching. Got a lot more elastic. That's what you're looking for. That's when your dough is getting about done. Just stretch and elastic. It'll tear, but it doesn't rip and tear as nearly as easy. You have to stretch it. It stretches a lot more. And your dough, done. Now it's time for cleanup. And that ain't easy. So again, that's these little guys come in handy. Okay. So that's our dough after being kneaded. Now, we're going to wait about an hour. Well, actually, the time doesn't matter. If all goes well, you need this to rise, and it will rise to about the top of that bowl. Okay, so you can see how low in there it is. It's going to rise to about, I'm going to cover it with some plastic wrap. Now, if all goes well, it'll be about an hour and a half, hour and 15, hour and a half for it to rise that high. A couple things, dough reacts best and rises best 70 to 80 degrees. This house isn't 70 degrees. So it's 65 probably right now. So, but it should still only take about an hour and a half. But don't worry about the time. Just wait for that to rise. So we need to get it to rise once, and then we're going to kind of stretch it or deflate it and stretch it out, and then we're going to split it into 2 loaves and shape it. So anyway, we're going to let that. Okay. I think it rose. So there you have it. That yeast has risen. So what I'm going to do, I just got done. Started the oven. We're going to preheat my cast iron Dutch oven and the oven. And we're also, I started the coals out back. So you want to make sure that your oven's preheated for at least a half hour. Get it up to speed. So I've set my oven at 500. We're actually going to cook at about 440, but I'll preheat it at 500 and get that going. So, okay, now with this, we're just going to stretch it, fold it back over itself. Do that a few times. Look at how elastic that is. I deflated that. Well, we'll just kind of stretch it. Try to reactivate that gluten in there. We're just going to do this for a couple of minutes. Not very long. Just kind of fold it over itself, stretch it out, fold it over. See how nice and elastic that is. Starting to get sticky again. It's getting about time to okay. Let me get myself cleaned up here. Okay, I've shaped one. Basically what I'm going to do, still kind of sticky, so what I'm doing, I'm just going to fold that, pull that out, fold that over. So I've got, I want to kind of fold that, the wet part over. This is the way I do it. I don't know that professionals do it this way, but, and then I just kind of crimp that together. Now, I'm going to turn that upside down. And just keep pulling underneath. You want to stretch that outer dough. And that's going to help you hold its shape. So you just kind of underneath, stretch it, crimp your crease together, stretch, and you just go around and stretch it, crimp that together, till you got a fairly firm ball that's going to keep its shape. So, again, if there's any expert bakers out there watching this, I'll take some constructive criticism, but I have found this to work, and turns out some pretty good bread. But again, it's just you want to stretch that dough. Now you got a couple of round loaves, and I'm going to take, and they're holding their shape pretty good. I'm going to take and cover them, and we're going to let everything preheat for a half hour or so, and we'll be back and start cooking. Okay, it's been a good half hour. I'm going to pull out my Dutch oven, preheated. Yeah, preheated. Now I'm going to take the top, put it in. I'm going to invert the top. This is where my loaf's going to sit. You want to invert that because it'll hold more steam, more moisture. Okay, loaf's on. I'm going to score the top. Now, I'm going to pick this up, a little bit of water, squirt a little extra water in there, trap some steam. That'll help get crispy crust on there. Now, I'm going to reset my oven. 440. I'm going to cook that. I'm going to cook that for 40 minutes. I'm going to cook it for 40 minutes, and then we will take the top off and cook it an additional 10 minutes to brown. So that's the kitchen. Let's get set up, show you how we're going to do outside. Okay, we're going to go through the same steps we did outside, or inside. We got it preheated. Dutch. Get my bread, drop it in. I'm going to score it. Now, with that lid like that, I can't squirt water in, it'll come out, but I'm going to drop in a ice cube. Okay, now, I've got this preheated, I'm getting some more coals going. Basically took the whole set of coals, I'm cooking this, 12 coals on the bottom, 23 on top. Basically used that entire those coals just to preheat this thing. I could have preheated in the oven and brought it out, but if I'm preheating in the oven, well, you know. But if you want to do this in camp, you need to preheat it with coals or put it on an open fire to preheat it. So I'm going to replace the coals in a minute. I'm going to cook no more than 25 minutes. It's going to be a total of 50 minutes, same as inside. No more than 25 minutes, and then I'm going to, probably more like 23, then I'm going to take those bottom coals and put them on top. You go past 25 minutes, you're going to burn the bottom of your bread. So do 23 to 25 most with bottom and top heat. Again, 12 on the bottom, 23 on top. And then take those bottom coals and put on top. We'll show you how we do that in a bit. So anyway, there we go. Okay, it's been about 23 minutes now. We'll move that off the coals. I can smell that bread cooking, so it's going to be good. Now I'm going to take my coals and just pile them on top. So top heat only for another 27 minutes. Now obviously it's a little harder to control the heat out here than it is inside on the oven. But I've done this a couple of times and it turns out pretty good. So I got the amount of coals down. I hope it's down pat. So that should work out just fine. So we'll be back in 27 minutes. Okay. That's 40 minutes. I'm going to take the top off. That's looking like bread, isn't it? And you can see how that rose some more in the oven. So let's put it back in. And we're going to brown that for another 10 minutes. Okay, folks. That's it. She's done. Let's see how it looks. I believe that looks like a nice loaf of bread. Get that kind of hollow sound. That looks like a nice loaf of bread. Kind of small, but that's how we make them. We get this out in here for now. Turn the oven off. Off. Now, let's go check out back. See how that. Okay, let's see how this one turned out. Looks like bread too. Not quite as brown on top, but that's to be expected. The moisture around there. A little bit burnt on the bottom. But not bad. That almost sounds nicer than the one inside. So, well, we'll see how these turned out. Okay, let these sit You see, the one from outside, just a lighter loaf. I think it's the heat. But anyway, let's cut into these. This is one from inside. Nice crispy crust. Look at the crumb in there, nice big. Let's see how this one looks. It's a lighter loaf. I think, you know what? It's just hard to control the temp. Last time it was a little more. I think I should just let this go another 10 minutes. But, you know what? It's done in there. So, it's just not quite as crispy a crust, but still pretty good. So, the one, all in all, without tasting it yet, the one in the oven, crispier crust, which I kind of knew was going to be, but this is still a darn good loaf. So, let me taste these. Okay, one from the oven, crispier crust, one from outside, just a lighter crust, that's all. So I'm going to bite into the one from the inside of the kitchen in the oven. Put some butter on there. Nice crispy crust. And you can see the crumb. You still have nice, nice holes in there. That was fun. Now this is what's from outside. Still very good flavor. Just not as crispy. Not as thick and crispy of a crust. But the crumb is still just fine. All in all, I like the one from the oven better. But, excuse me, if you got an outdoor function and you want to cook some fresh bread or a camper trip, you can do it out on that Dutch oven. Just remember, no more than 25 minutes on the bottom. You can see where we burned it a little, but not bad. Excuse me, got a crumb right there in my throat. And then you got to go all top heat. So, but that's still a nice piece of bread. The crust is just a little lighter. That's all. But anyway, folks, I hope you enjoyed. This is a real simple loaf, real easy to do in the kitchen, especially. So I hope you enjoyed. If you need any Dutch ovens to do this in, just click on our link, the Outdoor Cooks. Darn it, excuse me. And get a crumb of went down the wrong pipe. Anyway, click on the Outdoor Cooks, get to our blog site, and this particular blog will have links for the Dutch ovens, whatever. So, anyway, folks, listen, thanks a lot. I hope you enjoyed, and listen, cook up some nice French bread from scratch in your own kitchen. We'll catch you next time.